Thanks for the heads up one. Let me just cough all in the microphone there. I am Dallas Scott. That is Hollywood Huff. And this is Negro Please. Normally have a thing that we say about what this show is today. It's just going to offend people.
Yeah.
I was going to apologize in advance for offending people, but I don't think we should apologize for this. What's going to happen? It's just common sense, right? It's just, we'll get to that shortly. We're going to start with a couple things that were just kind of interesting for us this week, and then we're going to talk about something that seems to be in the headlines all this week and just makes no damn sense. First thing that I think is cool. So there's a school security assistant, who was fired from his job for saying the word nigger in Wisconsin. But here's the cool thing. He got his job back. And people are like, why is it a cool thing? He said nigger. Why does he get his job back? Well, the school district has a no tolerance policy for this word.
Right.
And I was looking for the quote and I can't find it again. But essentially, a student called him a nigger.
Yeah. The student.
A black student called him a nigger.
Right.
And to paraphrase, he said, don't call me a nigger. And then he explained to the kid why you don't call people nigger.
Yeah.
He got fired for this. And then he got his job back. I'm okay that he got his job back. This is a very different situation than last week, where the white dean said to the student, what if I called you?
Right.
This is a very different. Because I understand that they're both teachable moments.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I call you a butthole, don't call me a butthole, because this is, you know what I mean?
Right.
This was an educational moment for this black kid about why.
And it was also the security guard said multiple times, first, don't call me that.
Right.
Don't say that. Don't call me that.
Right.
And he kept calling him nigger. And so he said, don't call me a nigger.
Right.
And that was the quote that he got fired for.
Right.
Right.
And then he explained to him.
Yeah. He went into his explanation on this is why you don't call.
He explained to him African American history.
Right. Yeah.
The word
basically.
I hate the most.
Yeah.
He explained to him black history. Okay.
Right.
He said, this is why you don't call me that.
Right.
This is why you as a black person should not be using this word.
Right.
You should not give credence to other people to allow them to use this word. Because if somebody else calls you this who's not black, then you're offended by it.
Right. Right. And it was I had a hard time with this, because I understand they have this zero tolerance policy on using this word.
And they should.
I mean, it should be a zero tolerance policy. Like, you cannot use this word for any reason. But in this particular instance, this is something that when you're telling someone, hey, don't call me that, and then you use the word that you don't want to be called, that's, and to me, it's self-defense.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's him protecting his mental state, his self-awareness, and he should be allowed to say it in that instance of, this is the word that you can't say. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Or you can't use.
He could have just been mad and slapped the kid, but he didn't.
Exactly.
He said it. And I'm getting to the point where I almost feel like there's a part, we already know that there's a part of history that's not really told in American schools, right?
Right.
We know that there's a part of history that is whitewashed, right?
Right.
We have now learned that Columbus was not a great person.
Right.
Like, all my years in school, we knew. In fact, it was until 10th grade when Mr. Sampson, who was a Native American teacher, said, Columbus is a piece of crap. And I'm going to tell you why. And Mr. Begay is one of my two favorite, Mr. Sampson is one of my two favorite teachers. The other one was Mr. Begay, because Sampson was like, this book here is garbage. Right. Let me tell y'all what really happened. Okay.
Yeah.
And until that point in my schooling career, nobody had ever done that except for Mr. Begay a few years earlier, where Mr. Begay was like an English teacher, but he always challenged your thought process, which to me was really cool, because every other teacher you went to just told you what was in the book.
Right.
Mr. Begay was like, this is what's in the book, but what do you think really, you know what I mean? Like, why would this happen like this? It made you challenge authority, so to speak. And Mr. Sampson did the same thing. He was one of the teachers like, this is garbage. This is just this is not what happened to my people.
Right.
Kind of thing. And then ever since then, you're kind of like wondering, well, why are we praising this man, right? Like, why do we praise Columbus? He didn't even discover America. America Vespucci did. Like, Amerigo Vespucci did. So, like, but why do we give him credit for that? Like, you know what I mean? And now we know that, like, he was a terrible person. He killed people. It was just it started the mass genocide of the Native American people. Like,
when you read into it and you learn so much stuff. I had a teacher like that. Unfortunately, it wasn't until I went to college, and I took a Black history class. And on the first day, it was a white man walks in, he stands in front of the class, and he's like, "I'm your teacher." Unfortunately, I cannot remember his name. This guy's an excellent teacher. And he's standing there, and the class is probably 95% black. There's probably 2 white people, and I think it was an Asian person in the class. And he says, "Before I start teaching, before I tell you about myself and everything, I am the teacher of this class. And there's one question we got to get out of the way." And a couple people was like, "Is there going to be a lot of homework? Do we have tests? Yada, yada, yada." He was like, "These are good questions, but that's not the question." And then, of course, it was one guy, black dude. You could tell he was pretty urban. And he goes, "I know the question. Why is a white man teaching this class?" And it was funny because I really respect this answer. And he says, "Because I'm the most qualified person on this campus to teach it." And he was like, "You can be comfortable and have a black man teach it, but there's no black man on this campus qualified enough to teach this class right now." And nobody got offended. Nobody was upset. Everybody just kind of stood there and stared at him for a second. And then we all went, "Okay, all right." And he began to break down and teach us everything about basically factually what happened between the beginning of America and everything that happened between Africa and America and the slave trade and black history in general and things like that.
It is actually amazing to me the amount of people who teach historical classes, whether it's Hispanic culture classes, Native American culture classes, African American culture classes, that are not of that culture.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? Real quick, Jeremy is on our Facebook and he wants to know, how do we believe the teacher, in a sense where, because this was not something that was done in private. This was actually done in a hallway.
Right.
This is something where all these students said, in fact, he got his job back because the students protested. The students walked out of school because they said, "This is not fair. He didn't do anything wrong."
And he's a great person.
They
love him too.
They
that
love
was the
this
other
guy.
thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, he is somebody that the students feel, if they have a problem, they feel comfortable with going to him, and they feel comfortable going to Mr. Anderson.
Right.
And Mr. Anderson is that guy at school. Right. He's that teacher, that security person, that if something's going wrong, you can go, "Mr. Anderson,
right.
This
you
is
can
happening.
Go talk to him.
Yeah, I'm having a bad day." And so this was not something where it was done behind closed doors. This happened in a public hallway.
Right.
Mr. Anderson was trying to correct this kid. This language took place. So everybody saw this. And actually, Mr. Anderson's son is the one who started this. Like, he was like, "This is not fair. This is how you're treating my father. My father's done nothing but good for this school."
Right.
And the students rallied behind this and was like, "This is right. Mr. Anderson's not wrong on this. This other kid is wrong." And so that's how we know. That's how we can believe the security assistant here, because it wasn't something that was done in an office. It was done in a hallway, in a public place, and lots of people saw this happen.
And even before the school union, the other teachers, like, everybody had his back except for the person who basically was responsible for firing him.
Right.
So from day one, it's not like the story went out that he did something in any different way than what we've been saying he did it. Even the person who fired him said, "Yeah, that's exactly what happened. However, he broke the rule by using that word." So, everybody agrees that's what happened. So that's how we know that.
All right. Jeremy actually clarified this question earlier. He's saying, "How do I know that my teacher, my favorite teacher, Mr. Sampson, was telling the truth?" He had documents to historically back it up. Like, he wasn't just saying this. He had proof. He brought in documentation. He showed us proof that this is what happened. As all good teachers should do, right?
Right.
I shouldn't take you as a teacher for your word on anything, right?
Right.
These are things that just happen. So congratulations to Mr. Anderson for getting his job back. This next story, I have to give full disclosure. The gentleman we're about to talk about, a friend of mine is his child's mother, his baby mama. So I'm not gonna say a whole lot because but it's interesting here. Tank, he won a podcast this week, and the podcast is about sex. And Tank said, just because a man puts a penis in his mouth, he specifically said 2 times, doesn't make him gay. And first of all, if you've watched our show before, nobody here cares if you're gay, bisexual. No, nobody cares. Like, what you do and with your life is your business. It's not my business. We don't care. The problem is he's caused a lot of controversy as a statement, because the first statement was like, maybe you stick a penis in your mouth one time and you don't know if you like it, so you do it again.
So here's his quote. It says, he sucked the bleep once and said, I'm not sure if I liked it or not. Let me try again. And then he says, you know what? It's not for me. Don't like the taste. It doesn't mean he's gay. Hold up. It doesn't mean he's gay. It means he sucked bleep twice.
And so, I'm not here to say what is and what is not. I don't know. I don't know. I just think
I know.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how many times I don't know how many times I got to have sex with women before I'm considered a heterosexual. I have 5 kids. I mean, I don't know what the answer is here, but I just don't like.
Let me tell you something. If you're a man and you put another man's penis in your mouth, you gay. You know how I know? Because sex between a man and another man, by definition, is gay. All right? There's no in between.
But today I had Brussels sprouts for lunch. If I have Brussels sprouts again tomorrow, does that make me vegan or vegetarian?
If I kill somebody today, do I have to kill 2 more people before I'm a murderer? I mean, if I go to Walmart and steal something, do I got to keep stealing before I'm a thief? I mean, how many times do you have to do something before you fit the definition? Now, listen, look, if you're a man and you want to put penises in your mouth, that's your business. All right. But by definition, that's gay. I mean, you can't look. Are people allowed? Somebody said, well, what if a woman, gets with another woman and she's just experimenting? That doesn't make her a lesbian or bisexual. And I was like, well, actually, yes, it does. So are black men allowed to experience? The question was, are black men allowed to experiment sexually and not be judged and all of this? And it's like, look, man, we got to get past all this judging and whatever. There are certain things that you do in life and there's a title for it. So again, if I go to Walmart right now and I steal something, I'm a thief. It doesn't matter if I needed that meat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was hungry, so I stole something so I could eat. I still stole something. I'm a thief. That's how many times I got to do it. You understand?
No, I get it. I get it. But let me. So,
oh my gosh,
are you Are you a thief for the rest of your life?
No, you ain't a thief for the rest of your life.
So are you homosexual for the rest of your life because of something you did 20 years ago?
You don't have to be gay forever. But in that moment, you definitely gay. Look, man, I've stolen things in my life. I'm not proud of it. I was a teenager. I've stolen things from the store.
When I was a teenager, I used to make a business of it. Look, I would go to school I would go to the store before school because we were poor. I came from a very poor family. We didn't have lunch money and stuff like that. So I would go to the store, I would steal stuff, go to school, and sell the stuff I stole to kids. So I had money.
So look, man, I've stolen things before, right? I don't steal anymore. I'm a grown man. You know what I mean? I understand there's consequences. To me, it's just wrong. I don't steal because stealing is wrong. That's why I don't steal, right? I'm not a millionaire. Of course, there are some things I could use, but I'm not going to steal it because it's wrong, right? I don't want to, right? I have no desire to steal.
And there's consequences
anymore,
for that,
right?
Though,
and there's right, so
there's no consequence for being gay.
But you can be gay.
Quan, are you disagreeing? I thought he made that face whoa.
Yeah. So but here's the thing, I feel like his statement is almost saying hey, being gay is wrong. So you can do this and not be wrong. And
I didn't think of it like that.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
because he's saying the way he's saying it is being gay is a bad thing. But you can put these penises in your mouth and not be this bad thing. You can do this once or twice and you're still a straight man. You just was experimenting. And that's fine.
I guess I didn't think about it that way because I saw his follow-up statement before I saw his actual statement, and his follow-up statement is that we're just too damn homophobic in this country.
And you know what? I will agree with that. I think I don't know if I agree with that. Let me take that back. But that's a whole nother thing. I think that a person is allowed to experiment. You have free will. You can do whatever you want. However, when you do things, there are consequences to it. Like, you have freedom of speech, but you say the wrong things, there are going to be consequences. You're going to be held responsible for what you say, right? You're going to be held responsible for what you do. Again, if I go kill somebody right now, I kill one person, I'm a murderer. I'm going to go to jail for murdering a person. When do I no longer become a murderer, right? If I just decide I do my 15, 25 years, whatever in prison, I get out, am I still a murderer? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, can a person be straight and have some gay tendencies? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Fred commented on the Facebook. He says, if you walk in the room on a guy going down on another guy, would you walk out of the room thinking he is gay?
Of course.
Probably.
It's two dudes having gay sex. Like, I'm not judging. That's just what it is.
Right. Hey.
You know?
And again, like, I don't care. You can do whatever you want to do.
Right.
But there's something that I'm starting to care about that I never cared about before. And the reason do you know who Nkechi Amari Diallo is?
I have no idea who that is.
So Nkechi Amari Diallo, most people know as Rachel Ann Dolezal. Why is her name Nkechi Amari Diallo? Because Rachel Ann Dolezal identifies as a black person. And about 3 years ago, actually it was 4 years ago, she caught hell for this, right?
Yeah.
Because she identified as a black person. She was actually the president of the NAACP in Spokane, Washington.
Right.
And then somebody found out that she wasn't born black. She's born white. She
Right.
just tans a lot. She buys curly haired wigs and she lives her life as a black person.
And black people complexion is all over the spectrum.
Right.
So when I first saw the picture and she said she was black, I was like,
thought she was light skinned, sister.
okay, yeah. Light skinned black girl. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And she caught hell for this. She actually had to move out of her town. She had to move out of her city because people were like, you can't identify as a black person if you're not black.
Yeah.
Me, again, I don't really care what you do.
Right.
As long as you are not trying to openly force your opinions on other people. We're going to come back to Rachel. Okay. Air Canada announced this week that they will no longer call passengers ladies and gentlemen because it's not gender neutral. Okay. So millennials are just going to go crazy on us, and that's okay. I expect stuff like this.
Fight me.
Ladies and gentlemen is about as gender neutral as you can get.
Yeah.
You are either lady or gentleman. And if you are transgender and you've changed, you still fall under, if you were a gentleman and you changed the lady, you fall under lady.
Right.
And if you're a lady, you change the man, you fall under gentleman, right? Like there's nothing not neutral. And my problem with this is that ladies and gentlemen has always been a polite saying, right?
Right.
Now you're telling me after 300 years in this country, what are we at? 200 years in this country, that 400 years in this country. God, I got to think. Like, this is not, like, this is no longer acceptable. But this is Air Canada doing that. So it's no longer acceptable in the world to call somebody ladies and gentlemen because you identify as something else.
Yeah.
I don't understand because the same people who are saying I don't identify as a lady or gentleman are the same people who went in on Rachel Dolezal for identifying as black when she's not black.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are the same people that are offended by Dave Chappelle making a joke about identifying as Chinese.
Right.
When he's black.
Right.
You can't change, even though you can change your physical anatomy, you still fall under one or the other.
Right.
It is not the world's responsibility to make you comfortable.
Right.
And I understand it is also not the world's responsibility to bully you and to be rude in general, right?
Right.
There are some things that are just socially unacceptable, right? You should not, as a gay person, a black person, a white person, a male or a female, you should not be subjected to people
disrespecting
you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On whatever. You should not be subjective to going into a woman should not feel that going into a room and men talking bad about female, that's not acceptable. Right. Right. We're not talking about that, right?
Exactly.
We're talking about things that cannot be identified.
Yeah.
If you are a man, but you identify as she, they, we, who, whatever I don't know all the terms. You cannot be offended when people don't know that that's what you identify as. I am a light-skinned mixed black guy. I can't tell you how many times, literally in a day, people think I'm Latino or Arabic or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not offended when they say that.
Right.
I can politely say, no, sir, I'm black.
Right.
No, ma'am, I'm black.
Right.
No, sir, I'm not Latino.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't need the whole world to change so I can be identified as a black person.
Right. And I think that's the issue, is that there's something very simple about humans, which is you're either born a male or a female. And for argument's sake, less than 1% people are born with no genitals or have both, right?
Right.
So for the most part, though, we're all male or female. That's how you're born. That's also how you die. So 100 years after you're dead and your body's decayed and you got nothing but bones, scientists can dig up your bones. And they're going to look at these bones and they're going to say, this was a man or this was a woman. This was a male or this was a female. Very few bones are like, they can't tell, right?
Right. Because it's funny, and one of the identifying markers is the pelvis.
Right.
Right? Like, even if you've changed sex, which is fine, it doesn't change your pelvic area.
Pelvis is
we're
still
not
the
adding
same.
anything to it, right?
Your bones are still the same, right?
Eric actually chimed in and he said, I wish people wouldn't be offended based on logic, but man, they sure are. Which is true. We're talking about basic logical things. Always sells women's feminine hygiene packages. They are taking the female symbol off of these packages. Who the hell else is using these?
Yeah.
Even like if you've changed your sex from male to female, you didn't get a uterus and ovaries.
You're not having a menstruation cycle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He, she, they would be the only person that's going that I mean, I have seen people use these for other things. Like I've seen them taken for like bachelorette parties and baby parties and made into necklaces and things like that as jokes. Yeah. And I also, a couple years ago, there's a story about teenage kids dipping them in alcohol and shoving them up their butts because it helps the alcohol get into their system faster. Okay.
Yeah.
So women use these products. How is it offensive to anybody else that a woman's product?
Because there's women that are transgender and have turned into men that get offended at that because they're men now that still get their period.
And so
they are now identifying as men and they get their period, so that's why they're getting offended.
This is what my take on it is.
But I think you're still a woman. I'm muting my mic.
But here's the thing though, like, once you've complete like once they've gone through the whole process, they remove.
But not all of them go through the full process. They dress different. And they do other things different, but they still will get their
right.
They identify as a man, but they still get their period.
You still have that because you were born a woman.
Because you're a woman.
When you die, your corpse is a woman, but in between, you want to be a man, right? Or you feel like you're a man, or you have all these procedures or whatever to be a man, but scientifically, you're still a woman. Right?
They don't think that scientifically.
They don't think that, but that's just the way it is. Like, unfortunately,
there's no rules to some of their science.
And I'm glad you said that because
they have changed some of the rules and they've decided that there are more than two genders.
There's
so on and so forth, and there's thousands of genders.
730, now. I believe. Like, I have a cousin who put on Facebook yesterday because he was talking about, my cousin is gay. and he was talking about like he's learning about all these binary things like that.
Right.
And he put the term as a cis male, CIS. So I had to go look up cis male.
Yeah.
And basically, a cis male is a man who identifies as being born as a man. You're a man. Why do we even need this? Why, like, Quan's over here shaking his head like, why do we need you're a man who thinks you're a man. Like, why do we need a new word for that?
Well, now that offends me because
Right?
See,
As a man, I'm offended that you need a word.
This is my beef with it. If you're whatever you are, if you are, that's fine. Be that, right? But understand something. That's you and your personal business. You don't have to force or try to force everybody else to conform to the thing that you want to do. You're not asking for equality. You're asking for do what I'm doing. Preference, right?
And there's
give me what I want. There's a huge difference because it now affects the lives of everyone else who was totally fine. And I'm not talking about your rights as a human being. I'm not talking about you being able to just live a comfortable life. I'm talking about I should be able to say, ladies and gentlemen, and you not jump up and throw a fit like, well,
somebody told me
I'm a lentilman or whatever. I don't even know what terms are.
I want to put this out there too. We invite anybody on this show, right? If you have a difference in opinion than of us, come to the show. I want to hear your opinion. If you can have a logical debate without calling people names, we want you to come on to the show, talk. We have a phone number, 702-608-3259. You're allowed to call in. We can have this debate, right? We don't, sometimes when people say, we can agree to disagree, right? On things.
Right.
Somebody told me the other day, and this has bothered me, because we were talking about the ladies and gentlemen thing. And I was like, it's a polite thing. And they're like, well, yeah, it might be polite, but now there's a better way. And I've been thinking to myself, a better way according to who?
Right.
What's like, how do you quantify that it's actually a better way? There's no scientific study here, right? We're not talking about like chemo where like they can scientifically find out that if they do it this way instead of that way,
it's better for everyone.
Then it's better for everyone. People will get less sick. It takes less time. You know what I mean? You have to go through less procedures. There's no quantifiable way to decide that something like this is a better way.
I mean, what do you do? You get on an airplane and the person gets on the mic, and instead of saying, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelt, what are they saying now? Hey, everybody, buckle up. Like, I mean, at some point, will everybody be offensive soon?
We're not going to be able to talk.
Will they get on right? Will they
get zippers implanted on our lips?
Like, have you ever? And I've been dealing with the public for my whole life, my whole professional career. I've been in public spaces dealing with public people. 15 years I've been a dealer. I sit down at multiple tables every day, and I sit down with 9 or 10 people or whatever.
9 or 10 different people every half hour. 9 or 10
different people every half hour, basically, right? So I come across a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions, and people look different. So many times I can tell you a person has sat down, and this is before like the alphabet people decided to take over our country, right?
Right.
A man or woman would sit down, and I would look at them, and I could not tell if that was a man or a woman.
Right.
Right. You just their chest is kind of flat. There's a little bump, but I mean, I don't know if they're working out a little bit. I don't know. Their hair is kind of long or a little too short. Maybe they're a little chubby, and you're looking at their face like, is this a man or a woman? Do I say ma'am or sir? Do I, what do I do here?
Right.
Right. And so many times I try to avoid, I think of creative things to say, like, excuse me, instead of saying ma'am, sir.
Right.
You know what I mean? How I would address someone who I know who they are. Right. But to me, that was always in my soul. That was just disrespectful.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
again,
I'm not addressing that person directly.
Right. And when you say things, Eric chimed in on the Facebook page. He says, everybody wants to feel special. And he says that I'm a live and let live guy with no judgment. But when special people want to judge the world, that's where they lose me. And I'm the same way, right?
Right.
I don't judge you, right? Your business is your business until you start pushing your business on other people. And I feel the same way like preachers. Like if you want to be a pastor of this church and your congregation goes by what you say,
right,
great. But when you step outside that and you come to me and I tell you that I'm X, Y, and Z religion, and you're trying to tell me no, that I need to be PDQ religion, now I have a problem with that, right? Because now you're forcing your belief on me. And that's the problem with this binary thing, is that you are now forcing your belief on somebody else.
Right.
And I feel like I'm that white guy that we used to see on TV. I'm not racist. I got black friends. Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't discriminate. I have friends who are of all.
And that's the thing, like, because we don't discriminate, right? Because I don't either. Like, I have no problem with you living your life however you live it, right? But there's a thing of you using religion. There's a difference between sharing your religion with someone and converting someone.
Right.
You understand? Like I've been approached by very aggressive gay people who hit on me.
Same thing.
You know what I mean? A guy.
My
was hitting on me.
ex-wife used to just think, like, because we used to hang out at this gay club on Sunday nights in Minneapolis called the Gay 90s, because they had this great drag show.
Right.
And my brother's father-in-law was gay, and he like was VIP there, so we had a booth, and we get all the free drinks we want. So just go there. And my ex-wife used to just think it was hilarious when gay or transvestite people would hit on me. And I was never offended by it. Actually, it's kind of flattering that somebody thinks you're attractive. And I was like, no, I appreciate the offer, but that's not me.
Right.
And they were never disrespectful about it, you know?
Right.
Like, okay, my bad. And they might crack a joke if you ever change your mind or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, so like she used to just think this was the most hilarious thing in the world. But it's just not me. And those people didn't push their ideas on me.
And you know what? That's totally fine. It's no different than when a man hits on a woman.
Right.
Hey, can I buy you a drink? She says, no, thank you. Okay, ma'am, have a nice night.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you change your mind, I'll be over here in the corner because you're beautiful. Whatever, right?
Right.
I've had the opposite experience, though, where a gay person tries to hit on me. I say, no, thank you. I'm not interested. And they're like, what do you mean? Don't knock it till you try it. Have you ever done it? Like, you know, and it's like, there's some things I don't need to do to know I'm not interested in, you know? So, but like we're saying is, you have one experience, right? Where it's very respectful. It's, hey, would you like to try this out? No, thank you. Okay, have a nice night. And then there's the other person that's like, would you like to try this out? No, thank you. And it's like, no, you need to try it because you're an idiot for not trying it. And they go on with the insults and the remarks and everything. And this goes both ways. People insult, you know, I call them the alphabet people because I don't know all the letters that go with LGBTQ, whatever other letters are supposed to be there. But
see, I don't think this is the LGBTQ that's spearheading this. I feel like it's another group that consider themselves non-binary. They don't, and here's they don't want to be identified, right? If you are classified or put in this bubble, then don't put yourself there, right? If you don't want to be identified, don't say I'm non-binary because you've just identified yourself as a non-binary. Right. You don't want to be labeled as he or she. Then don't put yourself in. Oh, I'm this pronoun, that program, because you just labeled yourself, and now you're mad at me because I don't respect your labels when you just told me you don't want to be labeled.
Right. And so, and that's a weird spot because now you're dealing with people who you have to call. Everybody has to be something, right? That's why we have names, right? So I'm Steve. And if somebody walks up to me and they call me Steve, I'm totally fine with that. If someone calls me Steven, I'm totally fine with that. There are other iterations, Stevie, Steve-O, whatever. I don't get offended. That's not my name, but it ain't a big deal. You know, if someone continues on, I'll be like, hey, just call me Steve, man. You know, not a big deal, right?
We have to make a quick point, though. Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Carrie wants to make sure that we know there are douchebag straight guys also who won't take no from a lady.
That's 100%.
Right.
That's 100%. And those guys fight me on Fremont Street right now.
Yeah.
I hate that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. But there's other iterations name of Steve, right? So if somebody, and I get this a lot, somebody who I kind of know, maybe we don't know that well, maybe we just met, they'll call me Sean. I get called Sean a lot. And instantly I'm like, hey, I'm not Sean. I'm Steve. You know? I get it. Maybe they had a brain fart. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they don't care. You know, whatever the case may be. So I can understand someone being something and not wanting to be called something they're not. At the same time, I'm not going to go on a whole entire rant announcing to the world, trying to get every textbook and law changed just so that I could be called something that has no other benefit than just you calling me that.
Right.
I don't live my life going around professing my straightness. It's important to me as a person, but I could care less what the world thinks about my straightness, right? There's one person that my straightness matters to, and that's my wife, right? Like, it's important that she knows I'm straight. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of these things is like, let's change the world for something that's so very trivial. And there's no real correct answer to. There's no real fix for it. What is the word that everybody should be called?
This is what we're worried about right now, when we're in a place in this world where we got a president that's about to be impeached.
Yeah.
Epstein, before whether you believe he committed suicide or whatever your conspiracy theory says,
allegedly,
right, was trafficking minors for rich people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're worried about what somebody pronoun you are being called, when in reality, that's one, to me, it's one of the least important things in the world, what somebody calls me right now, right? There are so many more important things going on in this world that we should be thinking about.
Right.
The amount of children being sex trafficked in this world is astronomical, and we're not worried about that. We're more worried about whether you call me she, he, they, or everybody.
Yeah.
There are poor people in this country and around the world that can't get food to eat, clean water to drink. Flint, Michigan, Elon Musk just had to go through himself, not the government of the state of Michigan, not the U.S. government. Elon Musk, one of the richest guys in the world, goes and puts filtration systems in all the schools in Flint, Michigan, so those kids can drink clean water. And you're worried about he, thee, she, who, what, I am. Like, these are irrelevant to me. And this is offensive. It's an irrelevant issue, right?
Yeah.
And you can't equate, and then people will try and equate this to being a minority and somebody calling me the N-word. And it's such a false narrative on this subject.
It's not even close. It's not,
Nobody's been oppressed here, right? We're not oppressing you, right?
Right.
You're trying to be the oppressor, actually, by pushing down you can be the equivalent of the white person pushing your views on the black person.
Right.
In slavery, right? By doing this, by forcing everybody else to try and believe what you believe, right? There was no oppression. I didn't make you go out and do something for free. I didn't make you go pick cotton fields. I didn't beat you for not doing that.
Right.
So equating this to race things, the struggles that Indians in this country and Latinos in this country have gone through for years and years and years and generations, you cannot equate this to that.
Right.
There's history behind this.
Yes.
And I feel like in 3 years, we're going to forget about this subject, right? Unless we keep doing things like changing ladies and gentlemen to everybody.
Yeah. There's a thing in the 80s called androgyny, which was, if you don't know like what androgynous means, don't even Google it. You know what? Google Prince. Google like 80s bands, and you'll see a lot of black, white, male, female performers who you'll look at them and you'll look at their clothes and you'll be like, oh, that's a woman. He's got on a blouse and it's, whoa, wait, that was a he. No, that's a man with heels on. Like Prince is the ultimate example of like androgyny to me. He changed his name to a symbol that doesn't even mean male or female.
That's the thing is, like, this is not something new. This has been going on forever, and it's never been a big deal until you made it a big deal.
But here's the thing is that when Prince did it, they just did it. And that's something that people in general need to understand. Stop talking about it. Stop trying to get everybody else on board with it. Live your life. Do your thing. Like I said, these bands in the 80s, it was a thing back then. Like, all men didn't dress up in blouses. Like, I'm pretty sure some people saw Prince. They were huge Prince fans, and they went and started shopping in the ladies' department, and they tried to pull it off. Some probably could, some couldn't. I don't know. Google Shalimar. I mean, it's like,
Eric is making some really good points here, because we're specifically talking about non-binary, the people who want to identify as non-binary, not necessarily the LGBTQ community, because they identify something specific, right?
Right.
And Eric is making that the non-binary people can't even equate themselves to the LGBTQ community, because for so long, gays, lesbians, trans, they had to hide who they were. Yeah. Because of society, right? Because they didn't want to get beat up. They didn't, you know what I mean? Like they were put in shameful positions. Right. You know, they were looked down upon. They can equate that to being a minority in this country, because they were in a minority, and we've all heard stories, and we know people who came out as gays and their families separated themselves from them, right? These are real issues.
Right.
You deciding that you want to be known as they and not her that's not a real issue. There's no real struggle there.
Right.
You know, like
it's basically like, you don't see me and I want to be seen now. And well, we see you, but what are you doing? Like, go contribute, go do something.
Right.
You know, go accomplish something. Like, I think it's when people, I kind of have an issue. I don't know if issue is the right word, but when people come out and they say, you know, oh, I'm gay, you know, and it's like, well, why are you telling us? That's your sexual preference. In my opinion, it should be private, like, go do whatever. But I get it. There's an argument for it, and whatever. You want to come out as gay, that's fine. And I feel like that person, though, who comes out as gay, they usually can come out and there's a headline because they've accomplished something. They've won an award. They became a great actor or a great musician, or they've done something in life where the spotlight is on them and they want to encourage other people who are like them. I've not seen a non-binary person accomplish something and then come out and say, hey, I'm non-binary. Don't refer to me as this anymore. Maybe I could say Prince did it when he changed his name to a symbol. And he had lyrics that said things like, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I am something you will never understand. Maybe the non-binary people of today should take a page out of that textbook and go do something great. Go give us a reason instead of just complaining about ladies and gentlemen or what title you want to be called. Because
that the woman is on the maxi pad. Like,
yeah.
If you should go watch the documentary on Studio 54. Studio 54, nightclub, late 70s, early 80s, which was, for all intents and purposes, it might have been the greatest place on earth, right? Because people did drugs, they had sex with everybody, and nobody cared. You know why nobody cared? Because nobody was standing on a soapbox saying, hey, look at me, I'm having sex with everybody. Or, hey, look at me, I don't want to be, like...
Yeah. It's very exhausting, because on one hand you do want to show I show compassion to everybody. I get a feeling of not being seen. I get that. It's something that I think everybody goes through. I think everybody in one way, shape, or form wants to be noticed somewhere. Right. You know what I mean? Whether it's at your job, you want to be noticed for doing the work. You know,
I'm not trying to we're not trying to persecute you for that. Like,
right. It's just, you can't attack people for being nice to you.
Right.
You understand? There has to be a moment of stepping back and say, there are certain words, like, for example, the N-word. There's very few circumstances where I feel like anybody should use that word, right? Right. But just because I hear someone say it, before I go and say, oh, that person's a racist, that person's disrespectful, that person's an idiot, I want to know the context of it.
Right.
So,
which is exactly what happened in the school earlier.
Right. So if I'm at work and someone walks up and they look like a man and I say, how you doing, sir? What can I do for you? Because 99% of the people who look like men and I say sir to, they're going to understand that whether they want to be called sir or not, I was being respectful, right? But it's that 1% who goes, hey, don't call me that. I'm not a man. And then it's like, okay, no disrespect intended. What's your name? What would you like to be called? Right. That's how the conversation should go.
Actually,
you understand what I'm saying?
As a man, I'm offended for women, grown women, when a man calls them girl. Because I think that's disrespectful, right? Right. This woman has earned the right to be called woman because she's gone through those life experiences. Right. She is no longer a child. She is not a girl. Right. She's earned the right to be called a woman. So I understand that you identify as something, but when your label isn't present, then you can't be upset. Right. When people don't, if you have a name tag on and it says I identify as she or I identify as they, that's one thing. But when it's something that's not identifiable, you can't be upset with people for saying that.
So here's the thing: do all do all non-binary people even agree on what a non-binary person should be called?
No, because
You
they each have
understand what I'm
different
saying?
right. They all right. And
So-
then if I said that you're non-binary, is that offensive?
Because the frustration that most people are having with most of these things is that there is no solution.
Right.
You know, and we talk about like here are like, you know, my Huffisms, right? So there are a lot of people who are like, you know, oh, should black people be called black or should black people be called African American? And a lot of people think that white people are racist when they go, well, some black people like to be called African American. That's what I was told, you know?
And that's
when
true.
and that's true, right? And then there's some black people who want to be preferred black or black American. That's also true. So as a person, it's almost impossible for this one white person to not offend somebody when they refer to black people as an African American or as a black person. Right. They're going to be wrong somewhere. However, what was their intent? Were they trying to offend you, or did they just think, I thought that this is what I was supposed to say?
Right.
You understand?
I don't like the term African American. I prefer the term black. Yeah. But if somebody calls me African American, I'm not like, right. I'm black.
Yeah. Right.
Don't call me that. Don't pound on
Don't
the table.
Beat the table.
Quan is like, no, that's no.
The cameras look like an earthquake on the video. Plus, we spent a lot of money building those tables personally. So,
but like, there's no huff and puff about it.
Right. Right.
You know, and this is something that's physically identifiable, right?
Right. Right.
That I am not white.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. If I go to a white person and say, I don't know what instance I would, but they say, I'm not that, I'm Irish American or I'm Italian. Right. Okay, I apologize, Mr. Irish American person. And I'm okay, right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's okay, but it's a civil conversation. Right. Nobody's getting upset, turning up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's, they're not wearing that badge.
Right.
So I can't be upset with them when they say, or they can't be upset with me when I say, American, and they're like, no, I'm Irish American, right? Because they're not wearing it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize you were Irish American.
I think a big thing too about just people in general, and this is even, you know, going on with the toe tank thing is, look, man, if you do things or you live your life a certain way, you're gonna catch the label for the life that you live. So if you look like a man, you're probably going to be called a man or referred to as a man or treated like a man. If you look like a woman, same thing. You're probably going to be referred to as a woman and treated like a woman. There are plenty of times like I go in a store, right? And I open the door and there's somebody behind me. If it's a woman, almost 100% of the time I'll say, I'm going to open the door and let her go in first because she's a woman, right? If it's
but that's offensive to people now.
Yeah. And that's even offensive. It's like, I can get the door myself. And it's all right, fine, whatever, you know.
Eric has another good point on here. He's like, speaking for white people, smart ones avoid race descriptions altogether. And this is something that, as a black person, I try to do. Like, it really... So, you'll know this working in the casino industry, right?
Right.
There'll be a situation where somebody will come up to you and be like, do you know who this person is? Like, they won't be sitting at the table or something, or you've had they'll be like, who said that? Right.
Right.
And the first thing I try to do is describe their clothing. Right.
Right.
Cause I don't, and it bugs me, and I don't have an answer for this.
Yeah.
I hate saying it's the Asian guy with the blue sweater on.
Right. Yeah. You
know what I mean? But then I turn around, there's 5 guys with blue sweaters, and I'm like, shit. You know? I'd be like, it's the guy with the blue sweater. Okay, it's the Asian guy with the blue sweater. Like, I absolutely agree with this. I cannot stand when I have to do it, and I don't have an answer for this.
Yeah.
Describing people by race shouldn't be done, I think, unless it's absolutely necessary. And I think the only time it's absolutely necessary is when you're talking about a group of people that looks similar. Like if I'm trying to describe somebody's clothing, it's a guy with the blue shirt and the black pants on. And they look over there and there's 3 guys with blue shirts and black pants. One's white, one's black, and one's Asian. At that point, I have to say the Asian guy or the black guy or the white guy. But it's something that I work on myself because I don't like doing it, because I don't want to narrow people down to that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't want to narrow people. They're human beings. I don't want to narrow them down to their race.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I feel about this non-binary thing is you say you don't want to be labeled, then you put a label on yourself. But why do you want to be narrowed down to that? I am so much more than a black man or a mixed race person. I am so much more than that as a human being, that who I am should matter much more than how you identify me, right? And you should identify me by how I treat you and my character towards you.
Right. And I think that's part of the frustrating thing for me, because I hate when people, like, you hear somebody say something, right? Like a public figure, he'll say something and somebody will go, oh, he's an actor. Like, what does he know? Or, you know, I've had people say things to me like, you're just a poker dealer. Like, how do you know? Right. So, but I think
because of
I think that people are so much more than just their job.
Right.
People are so much more than just where they came from. Right.
So
it's a huge part. It's a huge part of who you are. Right.
Is.
You know, but it's not everything about who you are.
I have this friend who is a poker dealer now. In his previous career, he was a system analyst for NASA. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
He
sounds smart.
he might be one of the smartest guys on the planet. Like,
yeah.
Like, there's actually in the movie Armageddon where they refer to the guy who's the smartest guy on the planet.
Yeah.
That was his boss.
That was
like the real life guy
yeah.
was his boss, and he was like the number 2. Right. And he is now a poker dealer. He is a poker dealer because life is so much easier for him than that. He doesn't have to run equations and do, 70 hours a week working for NASA anymore. He just got to the point in his life where it was over with. I know so many people who work in the casino industry, or they're bartenders or waitresses, just because the job they did before, they either grew out of, or they got burnt out on it and they don't want to do it anymore. Right. Somebody's job doesn't make them smart or dumb. Right. And it's funny because I heard somebody once say this about Jim, was like, oh, he's just a poker dealer. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, he literally might be one of the top 10 smartest guys on the planet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's just so sick of being the smart guy. And you and I were talking earlier about how many, trying to make too many decisions in one day. Yeah. He just got tired of making these decisions. You know what I mean? Right. He got tired of that job and was like, I need something better and easier to do with my life. Right. So you don't know what somebody else knows. Exactly. And anybody who's ever been a fighter knows this, right? Rule number 1, don't underestimate your opponent because you don't know what they know. Exactly. And I feel like that you should be like that with human beings also, because I don't know what you know until I get to know you. Right. I don't know that maybe the reason you are a bartender or a poker dealer is because you have a wife and kids at home and your kid has cerebral palsy and you just need extra money to pay for medical bills. Right. I don't know that. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's an easier job for you to get than trying to work 2 40 hours a week jobs. So now you can work 20 hours a week here, 40 hours a week there. Like, I don't know somebody's circumstances, so I can't judge them by their job. Maybe you worked at MGM Properties when they laid off 1,100 people. And now you need a job to feed your wife and kids. Exactly. So you're driving Lyft, or you're bartending, or you're cleaning out.
Well, it's the whole shut up and dribble, right? Right. It's saying like look, you're LeBron James. You should just shut up and play basketball. Do what you do, and leave everything else to the professionals. Right. Right. But here's the truth: like, we're all in that sense of being a LeBron James of. Yeah, maybe I play basketball. Maybe I'm a poker dealer. Maybe I'm a security guard. Maybe I'm a Lyft driver, a bartender, whatever it is you may do. But you also might be a father, a wife, a husband, a mother, a sister, a brother, a son. There's so much more to your life. You have so many other responsibilities. You have so many other things going on. Don't let the fight be about what you're going to call me, what you're referring to me as. Like LeBron James, yes, you are a basketball player. He's also a businessman. He's also a father. He's also a
philanthropist. He gets away, like, you know.
So to me, this is equivalent to LeBron James coming out and saying, "Don't call me a basketball player. Call me a businessman." And it's like, bro, you play basketball. Like, you do, of course, yeah, you do other things, but you play basketball. Like, that's what we know you for. You know what I mean?
You are a woman. Right. I don't care if
you
know what I mean?
But then here's the flip side of that, right? we've all been that person who have told people to shut up and dribble. You know what I mean? Like, and that's like what the whole non-binary thing is like. I get it. Like, you don't want to just be called a basketball player. I understand that. You know what I mean? And now, in LeBron James' sense, you're doing other things that warrant you being called something other than just a basketball player, right? So I get it. So on a personal level, we're gonna not just say, "Oh, you're just a rapper. Oh, you're just a businessman. Oh, you're just this." I'm gonna call you LeBron James. Oh, this is for anybody who doesn't know him, this is my friend LeBron. Plays basketball. He's a businessman. Yada, yada, yada. On a personal level, right? But out in public, generally speaking, if LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George all walk in the room and I have to introduce them, I'm going to say, hey, these guys are in the NBA. They play basketball. Like, if you walk in the room and you look like a man, this man is a bartender. Or this man does this. The fight should not be about this such a small, minute thing. We respect it. We get it. We don't want to attack you, but it kind of is what it is. Like, you are who you are.
You know, there used to be a saying about choose your battles.
Yeah.
Is this the battle you want to go down in history?
Is this the hill you want to die on?
Right.
Like,
is this is this worth the aggravation, the fight? And it's funny because, like, I called you yesterday, right? And I said, what do you got to talk about this week? And we talked about a couple issues, and I was like, I kind of skated around it for a minute. I was like, look, between the always maxi pad thing, the Air Canada thing, I think this is one of the biggest issues of the week, and apparently it's one of the biggest issues going forward in society. And I also said to you that if we talk about this is going to be our Dave Chappelle or Kevin Hart. This is going to be one of those things 10 years from now, somebody's going to say, well, you said this.
Yeah.
This is what I believe right now.
100%.
Until you can provide something to change my mind, this is what I believe, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not apologizing for it. And I'm sorry. I guess I'll say I'm sorry if you're offended because I don't understand why you're offended.
Right.
Okay. So these are the type of issues that this becomes so soft in this country, right?
Yeah.
We have become, and the ironic thing is, we elected a president really because he wasn't PC. Right. He wasn't politically correct. He was, and still is, the complete opposite of politically correct, right?
Right.
And now all of a sudden, you're offended when somebody isn't politically correct.
Right.
And for years, even before Trump ran for president, we always heard people say, why do we have to be so politically correct?
Right.
You know? And somewhere between the 80s and late 90s, we got sensitive, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. TV shows changed.
Yeah.
The waitress today, actually, before we came up here, every week we have a meeting in a bar, little restaurant bar downstairs, and we kind of go over some things before we come up into the show. And the waitress is a sweet girl. She made the comment. She goes, Roseanne can't even be a Trump supporter when we were leaving. And no matter what I think of Donald Trump, she's right.
Right.
She can't be a Trump supporter. Like, because like that's a bad thing. And again, it's not no matter what I think of Donald Trump, right?
Right.
It's America. If you want to support Donald Trump, you should be able to support Donald Trump, right?
Right.
I can disagree with it all I want to, but I shouldn't be offended because you support Donald Trump, right?
Right.
Because I have learned, honestly, when Trump first got elected president, I was like, if you voted for this man, you're a complete, utter racist asshole.
A lot of people, I'm sure, shared that view.
Yeah.
Some still do.
And over the last 3 years, I have met some people who supported Donald Trump and either changed their mind or said, this is the reason why I supported Donald Trump.
Right.
And I was like, okay. I'm friends with this person, like on a regular.
Yeah.
And no way do I think they're racist. In no way have they ever shown me any behavior
right.
to make me think that they are racist other than voting for this man.
Right.
But a lot of what they're voting for him was just frustration with the system.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily a vote for him. It was a vote against the system and the status quo. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like so I get that people want change, and somewhere they want to go back to the way certain things were.
Right.
And for Trump to say "Make America Great Again," the one thing I think that made America great a long time ago was that we all had opinions, and we were all able to not be offended by them.
Yeah.
When you go back, and they're like, when you watch shows like Archie Bunker and The Jeffersons, like those shows are so offensive.
Yeah.
By today's standards.
Oh, 100%.
So offensive.
100%.
But they are some of my favorite shows because for every point, they gave the counterpoint.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Norman Lear is sheer genius when you go back and watch those shows.
Mm-hmm.
For everything that George Jefferson said, they provided a white person's point of view to negate that. Everything that Archie Bunker said that was negative and racist, his daughter and son provided the opposite side of the argument. Right. People were having intelligent conversations about things that needed to be discussed. And I think that we've somehow lost that, especially in this country, because we're so offended by somebody having an opinion different than ours that we don't want to hear what they have to say. Ellen DeGeneres a few weeks ago caught hell for sitting with George Bush.
Right.
And I thought she had the greatest comeback. She says, I don't agree with everything all my friends say. That doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Right.
We don't have to agree. It doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Right. Be nice to everybody. Yeah.
Be nice to everybody.
And people miss that. And granted, there are 101 things that we got rid of that we should have gotten rid of.
Right.
Right?
No. Okay.
And especially being on a topic of the way gay people are treated, the way, certain minority groups have been treated.
Right.
There's a lot of things that we got rid of. There's one thing to be just offended by stuff. Then there's another thing when you're offended by someone who's actually being offensive.
Right.
Right. And those are the things that we have been getting rid of. We're never going to live in a world where somebody doesn't do something that's offensive. The point is the motive behind it. Right. What is their reasoning for doing this? What is their logic? What did they mean? You look at not even 20 years ago, the Chappelle Show, right? That show could not exist today simply because people are too offended.
And the funny thing is, people love Chappelle today.
Yeah.
And that you're right, because those skits, like every once in a while, like I saw a skit last night on Chappelle about it was like a knockoff of Jeopardy, and it's like I know black people.
Yeah, right.
I know black people, which is funny because you talked about the African American study professor, and there was an African American study professor in the skit. A white guy who was that, and it was like it's when you look at it, he's got a white guy who teaches African American studies. He's got a Korean store owner, a white kid, basically what we call white Mike, the white kid who hung out with, who only grew up with black kids, only knows black kids, you know. And the brother from the hood, and then Becky, from, and he would ask them questions, because he wanted to know what would a black person say, And it was, and I was watching the skit, I was like, could he get away with this today? Everybody loves Chappelle, but could he do this today? And I don't think he could. And I think that's why Chappelle hasn't done it.
Yeah, and it's so because of social media, everybody has voice now, which it's great to have a voice. But the thing about having a voice is, sometimes you just got to know when to shut up.
Yeah. And you can't be offended when other people have a voice. I've said this like my entire life, and people always look at me like I'm crazy. I have respect for guys who are members of the Ku Klux Klan. Not the guys that wear the mask and hide behind the mask.
Yeah.
But the guys who say, this is who I am, and I stand by what I say I am, and this is what I believe.
Right.
Because now you're a man to me, right? because I have beliefs. I stand behind my beliefs.
Right.
I don't have to agree with your beliefs, and I'm not asking you to agree with my beliefs.
Right.
But be a man or a woman and stand up for your beliefs and don't hide behind them. Don't say something and then go, oh, that's not really what I meant. It was taken out of context. No, you said that. You said that. So now, once you backpedal on it, I have no respect for you, right? Because you backpedal and now you're trying to make everybody else know what happened. But when you say, this is who I am,
right.
And Pastor Wilson.
Yeah.
He got cut up last week, right?
Hey.
But he didn't apologize for it. He said, this is who I am. I'm a man. This is what I like. I got respect for that.
Yeah.
Because he's not trying to change himself for the rest of the world to be happy with him.
Right.
I don't have to, actually, I do agree with him, but I don't have to agree with him, right?
This is what I think is funny is like when a situation like him pops up. And then you get people who bash the church and people who are like, oh, this is that or this is whatever. And to me, I felt like, you know what? This is very refreshing. This is a guy who was caught doing something that will be considered to be morally unacceptable. Was this video like with his wife?
No,
because I don't know.
He was, he's married and this was with
with some other woman. All right. So the dude was cheating on his wife. He's a pastor, which, so there should be some backlash or whatever. But
the first thing was that people are up because he's a pastor. Like pastors aren't male or female pastors. Like they're not human beings. Like they don't partake in these things anyway.
So there's a whole bunch of, this, that, this, and that. Here's the thing that gave me a sense of peace about it, which is what you just said, is the dude just came clean. Right. Like he didn't come out with some silly excuse. He didn't try to tell you like what you saw in the video ain't really what you saw in the video. Like there was really no excuse for his actions. He was just like, look, man, it is what it is. And with that information, we as humans need to start acting on it. And you need to decide like, look, I go to this church. My pastor just got caught cheating on his wife on video. Maybe I need to find a new church, or ain't no big thing, whatever. I'm still pay my tithes on Sunday. Like, at some point, we need to get. We need to stop trying to.
You can't be in the church cheating on your wife, then be mad at the pastor for cheating on his.
There you go. Right. So look, we need to stop trying to get the whole world to rally around our cause and be about our own cause.
Right.
Like there are places like, and I say this to this day, I have not shopped in a Dillard's store. I have not even walked in any mall in over 20 years because this happened twice when I was about 19 or 20 years old. I went into a Dillard's. They asked me to leave because I wasn't buying anything, and they accused me of stealing. The first time I was just asked to leave. The second time I was escorted out by security. I did nothing wrong. I was literally walking through the mall and decided to walk through Dillard's, and I was in essence window shopping, which is what people do every day, right? I felt like it was racist. I wrote a letter to Dillard's. I got one response back that was basically like, well, they were just doing their job, so whatever, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm never shopping at Dillard's again. I did not try to get the whole world to rally around me. I didn't tell my whole entire family. I didn't tell everybody. I just made a personal decision. I ain't never going to Dillard's again. One day, this was probably 5 or 6 years before I even met my wife. And then we were together 3 or 4 years. We happened to be in the mall one day and she was like, let's go into Dillard's. And I was like, nah, I ain't going in there. She's like, why? And I gave her the story and she was just like, oh, okay. So we ain't never been to Dillard's, right? But this is the thing. Everybody who knows me, only like 3 or 4 people have ever heard that story. Because me personally, I know the value of my time. I know what I'm worth. I know what my money is worth. And if you ain't going to respect it, I'm not going to give it to you. I'm not going to give you my time, my money, my efforts, my attention, anything, right? So I don't mess with Dillard's and I ain't messed with them since, like, period, right? So if you go to a church and your pastor comes out and he's like, look, I'm down with the homosexuals. Well, at that point, you need to make a decision. Either you need to listen to what he got to say or maybe find another church. Your pastor cheating on his wife, find another church. We don't have to get the whole world to be like, this is what's wrong with the church. Da, 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 da. Half the people who mad at the pastor don't even go to church at all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they ain't never even, like, this don't even concern you. Like,
haven't been to church since their mom made him go on Easter Sunday in 1942.
And they offended by it. Right. And it's like, you know what, man? Like, this dude has made a decision. And whether I agree with it or not, there's only one pastor I'm concerned with, and that's my pastor.
Right.
Right. So me and my pastor have conversations regularly, and he checks me on the regular. Like,
it's
hey,
hard
what are you
for
doing?
me to
Right?
be offended by normal human behavior.
Yeah.
Like I like this pastor had sex with a woman. Like I expect men
Look.
to have sex. I expect people, not just men to have sex with women. I expect people to have sex with other people. Like, so I don't know how that's offensive. Like, and I feel like,
Well, you're in leadership. I get the fact that he's in leadership. He is the pastor of a church, right? And there's a lot of people following him. So if it's good for the pastor, it's good for everybody else. And a lot of people don't agree with that morally. And so I get like the outrage, but I feel like that outrage should come from the members of his church and not from everyone else. Like at some point we need to be in a mode of what is the solution here?
so
But for them, not for us. Like that to me is what it is, you know?
So I have a friend, Eric, and he's on the thread today.
Mhm.
Eric is a very wealthy, successful man.
All right.
I showed you pictures of his house when I went to his house for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Like he's very wealthy, very successful man. And he said, I agree with him on this, but I don't know why. Okay. And this is,
All right.
he says there's too much risk in being completely transparent with your opinions,
Ooh.
especially in today's world. When it comes to sensitive issues, he says he always has to ask himself 2 questions. What does it buy me to express my opinion on this topic? And then what could it cost me to express my opinion on this topic? And then if it costs me more than it could buy me, he generally avoids it. There are times when I don't care how much it costs me because it's too important, but it's his basic rule of thumb. See,
That's good. I like that.
it is. And Eric's, I don't want to, Eric, I've actually talked to Eric about coming on the show, so maybe we'll have him on the show at some time. So I don't want to get into what his business is and everything right now. I think, and this doesn't apply to the always maxi pad thing,
Right.
but I've always thought that Nike, Colin Kaepernick, right?
Right.
For every person that said they'll never buy a Nike product again because their sponsorship of Colin Kaepernick,
Right.
there's a black person who says, I'm going to go buy a pair of Nikes to support Nike's decision on this.
Right.
And I feel like Eric's not really, he's in a product business, but he's not really in a product business.
Right.
I feel like when it comes to products, like always doesn't have anybody to go to, right? Because either women buy this product or nobody buys this product, right? Like I have no use for always, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, unfortunately, I have 3 daughters, so like,
Yeah.
I guess when I go into the store, I won't buy always for them if they ask me, Dad, go pick this while you're going to Walmart, grab these for me. But I feel like generally, for every one person you offend,
Yeah.
somebody's on your side because we're such a divided. Like there's
Right.
very few people in the middle of anything, right?
Right.
So, as much as I understand Eric's point, I feel like when it comes to products,
Mhm.
I think even like Donald Trump, for like every person he offends,
Yeah.
there's somebody
who's like, I agree.
yeah,
You know what I
"Rah,
mean? Yeah,
let's
yeah,
go, yeah, F
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
yeah, you know what I mean? So like, I get that, and so when we decided to do this show, right, like we talked about this wasn't something we just woke up one day and we're like,
Yeah.
hey, Quan, you got a studio, we're gonna come down and do a podcast. We
Right.
actually discussed this for probably a good 6 months
Right.
before we did this, right? And this actually came together because we were sitting at a hookah bar one night and we were having a conversation, and I was like, you and I are going to do a podcast and we're going to call it Negro Please.
Yeah.
And you were like, and so over the course of like 6 months, we kept having these discussions about this podcast.
Right.
We kept having discussions about that it's going to be offensive to people, right?
Yeah.
And we kept having, and because of our opinions on our own race, black people, we
Right.
knew it could be especially offensive to black people, but we also knew that there were going to be black people who were like, thank God somebody finally said that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we knew for like every person we offended,
Yeah.
there was going to be a black person who's like, hallelujah,
Yeah.
preach.
Right.
But I think that's the way society is in general, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to agree on something, and that's okay.
Right.
We don't have to agree. you and I, sometimes we agree pretty much on the show. Sometimes we just have different takes, but still kind of similarly agree. But there's a lot of things that we don't agree on.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't really touched on it, but we disagree on gun laws.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, like we have similar ideas, but mine's a lot different than, you know what I mean? Like, and that's okay. Right? Like, it's okay for you to believe what you believe, as long as what you believe is not hurting somebody else.
Right.
Intentionally.
Right.
Right. Are you taking your belief and going out to intentionally hurt somebody else? Because now that's not a you and me problem. Right. That's a society problem, right?
Exactly.
Epstein believes it was okay to traffic children.
Right.
He's hurting somebody else. That's a societal problem now. He deserves everything he gets. Unfortunately, we'll probably never know who else was involved in that, which is a shame, because they deserve to get something too. And I have this thing, I actually saw a meme today that said, protect all children, not just your own, because I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that children are sacred. I believe if somebody's running for political office, their children should be off limits.
Yeah.
Like, when you're discussing it with a horrible person there, don't bring their kids and family into this.
Yes.
That's not right. Like, so to me, children are the exception to every rule, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. Like, you need to protect them. And if there's a law that's written, it should be written with children in mind, right? Is this going to, that's the one thing that we should, is this going to do something to harm children? Is this law going to protect children?
Right.
Like, and we need to think about that in everything that we do, in my opinion. Because I just feel like kids can't protect themselves.
Right.
So, but because, I'm sorry, I'm reading.
No, you good.
Eric makes a very good point here. Again, he says, you can make a life out of polarizing people, but you can't make a business out of polarizing people.
Very, very true. And even going on what he was saying, I do believe that, whether it's in a business sense or a personal sense, everything you say, even to a person, will cost you. I mean, you have to count the cost of all of your actions. You have freedom of speech, but saying certain things could cost you, right? So,
like Rob Drake, the Major League Baseball umpire, who set out the tweet that if the president was impeached, they're going to start a civil war.
Yeah,
that's going to cost him his job, right?
Right.
But and he has a right to say what he wants to.
Right.
But he works for MLB. That's going to cost him his job.
And that's a perfect example of, he should have used Eric's example there and decided, if I say this publicly, what's it going to cost me? Is this going to help me, or is this going to hurt me? And a lot of us need to take that into account, even with being offended. Like, does being offended here really help me, or does it hurt me?
Right.
I don't like the N-word. If someone calls me the N-word, it doesn't physically hurt, but there is some disrespect, and I'm not going to let a person disrespect me, right? But at the same time, if it's someone who I don't know and they say it in passing and it benefits me more to just walk away and keep going with my life, then a lot of times that's what I'll do.
I cannot tell you how many times I have just walked away from this situation, right? Because it's going to get me arrested.
Right. Of course.
I mean, what good is it going to do me? I had an incident when I was in Europe where I really should have just beat the snot out of somebody.
Yeah.
But it's going to get me arrested in a foreign country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing in that spot? You know what I mean?
Right.
No.
So, I mean, you have to count the cost. You got to start weighing in on, what's this going to do for me? How will this benefit me? Where is this going to take me? One of the biggest things I've done personally in my life, especially as an adult, is training for self-defense, firearm use, different things like that. And with the things that I learned, the more that I learn, the more dangerous of a person I become, the more capable I am of physically hurting and possibly even killing somebody. And the more training I get, there's no one telling me to do this, but the more I'm just into defusing and walking away from a situation.
Yeah.
Because I know this could end with me literally taking someone's life. And is that worth it? Nah. So I just choose to not be offended most of the time and walk away. And if nothing else, if you don't get anything else from this show today, take that with you. Just just move on.
Yeah.
Like there's bigger fish to fry, as they say.
Choose your battles. I am Dal Scott. That is Hollywood Huff. This has been Negro Please. We will see you back here next Thursday around 12-ish or whenever our super producer Quan gets here. All right. Thanks for joining us.